Tell us about Imagry and what you're bringing to the market.
At Imagry, we develop full-stack autonomous driving software. We do it for both passenger vehicles as well as for buses. We've been driving autonomously on public roads in the US, Germany, Japan, and Israel since 2018. We work with a few OEMs and tier ones on deploying passenger vehicles, but this, because of the long time, will get only by late 2027. And we also provide autonomous buses, or in fact, we integrate our software with electric buses and provide it to public transportation operators in Germany, in Israel, in Japan, and next year also in the US. So indeed, we see a big opportunity in the market. I know that the hype, if you look on headlines, is a lot about robotaxis, at least in North America. But the real business opportunity, as we see it now, is with buses. There is a strong demand everywhere, well, maybe with the exception of the US, because there is a real business case. Unlike robotaxis, that the return on investment there for a robotaxi that cost over $200,000 is something like 3 years. In buses, first of all, it helps the environment. It reduces vehicles off, takes them off the road. It solves for the public transportation operators the problem of the shortage of drivers, right? 16 to 20% in almost each and every country, and it's growing 1% per annum. It creates operational financial benefits, because not only that you save on the drivers that you don't need to employ, but they are creating additional revenue, because public transportation operators are being paid by miles, by kilometers that the buses drive. So when they can send more buses on the road, and we see it with commercial lines that we operate in the peak hours during morning and afternoon without the need to hire drivers, it contributes something like additional 20% to the top line. So all the public transportation that we work with, they see it as a very strong financial benefit that improves their financial results. The governments are into it because they prefer, obviously, mass public transportation instead of more vehicles on the road. And the cities, because it's typically the municipalities that are issuing the RFIs and the RFPs, they are also winning because they get greener cities. So it's kind of a win-win to everyone, and there is a true, real, existing business case for it. As Lani mentioned, that's the same process that is happening also everywhere. Basically, also in Japan, you see the same as in the Scandinavian countries. They don't have a young generation of drivers. They don't want to drive commercial vehicles whatsoever, whether it's trucks or buses. And so it's a kind of a natural evolution. And indeed, also for us, the bus lines that we operate, they are hybrid. So basically, for example, if we operate line number 5 in the city, so some of the buses that are, we operate there in that line, 3 autonomous buses. So, you will wait if you don't want to onboard, like we see it with elderly, for example, in some places, if they don't want to onboard the autonomous buses, then they wait for the other bus for like 3 minutes later or 5 minutes later, that is, human driven. And by the way, with the young guys, with the young generation, it's the opposite. They wait for the autonomous buses, they jump on them, immediately start taking picture 5 minutes after it's on TikTok. So we see the generational gap, but eventually, as I mentioned, it's a gradual shift that is happening anyhow because of all those drivers retiring. Yeah. And the projects typically, because of very, very specific regulation and legislation of autonomous buses, the projects take like 12 to 18 months at a minimum in order to get to level 4, to driverless. So you have stages, you have gates that you have to pass. You need to pass safety tests, you need to pass a cyber framework, UNR 155, that is mandatory in Europe from August 2024. It doesn't exist with robotaxis. You cannot drive a bus remotely. Like with robotaxis, you have to get to the level that it will drive level 4 driverless regardless. And eventually, and that was mentioned before, by the operator, you need to drive on the ODD on that route. After you passed all testing and after you reach that autonomous level, you need to drive 100,000
autonomous kilometers on that specific route in a city in order for the local Ministry of Transportation to grant you the permit in order to go from level 3 to level 4 driverless. And then that's it. You have that for the type of approval for that bus, for that model in that country. You have basically the approval that you can go level 4 driverless, and from that moment onwards, it's just a matter of scaling. You know, the regulation even sets levels of acceleration and deceleration, so it would be a smooth ride. And you know, the best compliment that we get from passengers is that they did not feel that it's autonomous. They you know, get off the bus and say, or the vehicle, and they say, wow, you know, that was completely natural.